Hello. Hi, everyone.
Oh,
Hi, how are you? Welcome to the Tuesday live Q&A with our lovely guest, Elizabeth Greene. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I am doing pretty good. Um, this is the first time we're meeting, right? I don't think we've
Yeah, yeah.
oh, before. Wow, so that's exciting, like, way to get introduced to each other via live stream. That's pretty unique.
Yeah, for sure. It's fine. I'm totally down to learn on the fly. I can spiel when I need to.
Okay, awesome. I'm definitely gonna be relying on that spontaneity. I'm much more of the person that I like to plan. I like to know what's gonna happen. Throw something spontaneous at me, and I'm just like, oh gosh. So this should be exciting. I've never actually hosted live questions before, so I
Awesome. Well,
apologize
I've never been a
in
guest
advance.
before, so we'll learn together.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is great. Cool. So I know that a lot of our audience knows. Oh, yay! Thank you. I'm excited too. Oh my gosh. Oops, popped open a window. So I know a lot of our audience probably know a lot about you already and how awesome you are. Forgive me for being green. Oh, I get it. But yeah, would you mind giving us like a quick introduction, letting us know who you are, what you're about, like for
Yeah,
all
for sure,
people who
for
don't know.
sure. So hi, my name is Elizabeth Greene, like on the screen. And I own or co-found and operate an Amazon advertising agency, which is why I'm on here to talk about Amazon advertising, because that's definitely my one core strength, I would say. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. Just digging into Amazon, the world of Amazon advertising.
Okay, awesome. Great. Thank you. That's so cool. I got a lot of questions here from Jaleel. I'm thinking we should just jump right into it. And then if we run
Sure.
out of questions, we can just start chatting.
Sure,
Okay,
yeah, totally down to it.
great. All right. So it looks like our first question here. Oh, I remember this question from the Friday podcast. Awesome. So Jalil says, what are some things to look out for or understand when selling a premium product? So something between $400 and $500 on Amazon. What should I be looking out for and how?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really good question. So the main struggle you're going to have with a premium product is that you have a much bigger ask of your buyer, meaning
Mm.
they're giving up a lot more. If somebody's going to go and purchase like a $5 product, they're like, it's $5. If it sucks, I don't care. But if I'm giving up $500, you bet that I'm really going to be specific about what I want. So you're going to find that your shopper is going to be much more picky, and with that is going to come a lower conversion rate because you're not going to appeal to everyone. Now, it really depends on like what space you're in, but I know that a lot of the products that we have that are more like premium products, there's definitely something about them. Like for instance, even if you sold like a couch, like say, which honestly for a couch, $500 is probably kind of cheap in today's market. But for instance, if it's a couch, people are going to be like, oh, okay, so I want, maybe they type in like leather couch, which obviously you need faux leather at that price point, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So I'm typing in like, I want, leather couch. Well, okay, do you want like a brushed leather or do you want like more of a patent leather? So shiny leather. Like
Mm.
you're going to end up with people being a lot more like, I'm dropping $500. I want it to be the thing that I want. You're going to find a lot of people clicking around. Benefit of you having a lower conversion rate in with a higher price point is if say your profit margins are like 20% or maybe even like 15%, 15% of $500 is a heck of a lot more than 15% of $25. So you're going to have that room to play with. So what I would say is, and I'm looking at his other questions in here, and one of the other things that he's dealing with is that there's not a lot of keywords in this space,
Mm.
which definitely creates sort of nuances to this. Because what I would say, and what I say to anyone who's doing a launch, is you want to dig down into your specific shopper. So look at what they're searching. For instance, if I'm selling like going back to couches, like if I'm selling like shiny leather or someone sells like shiny brown leather, or if it's black, like you want to get super, super specific to that shopper. That helps you.
Mhm.
One, you just should get better conversion rates because you're targeting your exact shopper. And then two, it also helps you specifically vet the product if it's something the market. Because if you're not resonating with your exact target shopper, there's some sort of a disconnect between your offer and the market. So in the beginning, not only are you trying to decide, okay, I want to be able to sell more, but you're also trying to identify, like, I've done best practices, I've done my research, I feel like I'm launching something the market wants, but advertising not only helps you sell more and get more visibility, you also get really quick feedback on validation of the product. So along with lower conversion rates, what you're going to need to do is to make more of allowances for clicks. So for instance, if I have like, say, a 2% conversion rate, I got to get 50 clicks to validate if that
Mm.
actual shopper does or does not resonate with my product. So you're just going to have to allow yourself more leeway. Again, the higher price point is going to give you more wiggle room as far as like if you're going to be profitable or not on your launches. The other thing that we have found is that if you are in a space, and I'm just assuming, given like we've sold anywhere large, high price items from like scientific equipment all the way to like clothing accessories, like those. So I've seen the gamut, but what I have found is that people do get more picky at that price point. And the other thing that I found is if you have a more stylized change or there's something very, very specific that you're appealing to in your market, a shopper is much more likely to go down to page 2, page 3 because they're trying to get their exact specific thing. Like if I'm going through and I'm like, I need a kitchen spoon, I just need a freaking kitchen spoon. I don't care if it's like at that point, unless I'm using it for a display, I'm like, I don't care if it's brushed stainless steel or shiny stainless steel. I'm not using it as a display. I need the thing to work. Or a lot of times, if it's like a higher price point, they're like either, like for a case in scientific equipment, I need this specific thing, or in the case of like the accessories, I want it to look specifically like this. And so
Mhm.
they're willing to go through the effort to be able to find the thing that they're actually looking for. So oftentimes you can get a lot of benefit ranking on maybe the more high volume keywords that you might not have thought about going out after in the beginning, because you're like, I'm never going to get to page 1. Sometimes if you can get up to page 2 or page 3, that can be an option. You really just have to feel out your market, and you'll notice that lift. So as you maybe hit page 2, page 3, you'll notice like the changes in ad sale percentage, changes in your total ACOS numbers. You'll find those positive trigger, and you could just watch your ranking volume and associating with your sales and be like, okay, I saw that when I was on page 3, even I saw positive feedback in my sales volume. So you can kind of go there. So I would say give more leeway, maybe test higher volume keywords than you think, and yeah, be prepared for low conversion rates.
Yeah, awesome. That was such great advice. I couldn't help but think that I'm actually in the market for a couch. So I was like thinking about these different things that I've been looking at. And yeah, I've gone all the way to like, I'm insane on Amazon. I'll search like all the way to page 10 just
Yeah.
because I'm looking for that specific style. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, I want the couch to, the specific one I'm looking for, I want it to be able to fold out into a bed, but I also have like space restrictions. So I need it to
Hmm.
be a certain size. And I'm also very picky about style. So I'm trying to find that perfect combination. So I will go deeper into the Amazon search to make myself happy. If I'm going to be spending this kind of money, I
Yeah.
want to make sure I'm satisfied. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
that is a great call out. That really it goes outside of the realm of PPC, but if you are having a shopper spend a lot of money on the product, you want to do as much work as you can on the listing to help
Mhm.
them like feel and understand and comprehend. Like for you, if you're looking for a couch with dimensions and you go onto a listing and you're like, well, okay, they gave me the dimensions of the couch, but they didn't give me the dimensions of the fold out. Like, I'm not even going to chance it because I'm not
Right.
spending the money because I don't know if it's going to work for me. So as much as those
Exactly.
questions as you can answer in the listing,
Mhm.
it's really going to help with your conversion rates.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. It's so funny that the first topic, I'm like, "Ah, I'm looking for a couch." Excellent. So let's go to our next question here. Oh, yeah, not a lot of keywords in
Mhm.
the niche. We kind of touched on that already. The next one is Jeffrey. Oh, we got like a couple parts here. Okay. Part
Yeah.
one. By the way, just so everyone kind of knows, I am dyslexic. So if I read funny, just ignore me. I'm hoping we have some other dyslexic people in the audience who get me. I understand. But anyway, so in the placement tabs, how do you decide when and what percent to use top of search, say at 10%, and or product pages at 10%? Part two, and do you use both in the same campaign, or is it either or? Question mark.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And this kind of goes back to my philosophy on placement percentages. I'm just up front, I'm not a huge fan of using them across the board in any and all circumstances.
Oh,
They're really to enhance certain specific things in ways that you can get, again, certain placements. So for those in the audience not knowing what placement percentages are, you can tell Amazon like, hey, I would be okay with increasing my bids if I showed up at the top of search. Hey, I'm okay with increasing my bids if I'm going to show up on product pages. The thing that you have to, two things to keep in mind when you do this. One is Amazon will potentially spend whatever you tell them. So if you're like, I'm going to double my bid, they will double your bid. And that bid doubling does not take into account performance metrics. So when you go into the placement tab, you're going to see like, oh, you're performing like on average, your ACOS top of search is this amount or whatever. And so you can opt to say, I'll pay a little bit over this. So I guess there's a couple things you can keep in mind. When I'm determining if I should put placement percentage on something, I will use sort of a filtering mechanism. So one, I would want to keep in mind that this placement percentage is going to apply to everything contained within the campaign. If I have a huge franking campaign with like 50 different ad groups and a million different keywords, it's probably not a good idea because you have no idea if maybe the little bit of data you have at top of search only applied to a few select keywords and you're willing to boost everything. So I like to keep it in more limited campaign sets. The other thing you want to keep in mind is the match types in the campaign. Now, it depends on how aggressive you want to get. I'm not a huge fan of going super aggressive on, like, say, auto campaigns, categories, sometimes even broad match campaigns. The reason why is the ability for it to trigger a whole bunch of search terms. And again, you don't know if that great performance has happened from just a couple search terms versus maybe the entire search term. So maybe you're like, hey, I'm going to increase my bids here, but all of a sudden it starts triggering some other search terms and performance goes kind of crazy. So you would want to keep that in mind. There are some kind of interesting things you can do with placement percentages on product pages, maybe married with an auto. Like, I have fun building those. So those are just fun to me. But if you're talking about like general strategy, I would prefer to keep it on more tightly knit, more select build outs, I guess you would say, like maybe more your exact match, maybe phrase match, maybe ones that are you're targeting, like maybe your specific top keyword, those kind of campaign builds. And then the other thing I would just say is to look at the data that you have. You know, if you are getting great performance on top of search, great. Test out higher top of search. The other thing you want to look at is the amount of data. Like, how much can you adequately say, like, I'm doing well in this placement? Like, if you have, say, oh my gosh, top of search is giving me 20% ACOS, but you have one order, like, is it really though? Like, do you know? Or if you have like, oh my gosh, all my orders are coming from top of search, look, my performance is phenomenal, that would be a really great test. So look at like how much data you have to validate, is it actually working or not? And then I'm a huge fan of testing in increments. Again, there's those crazy campaigns where, like, you know, you put the 200 top of search, like, those are, I would say, outliers, very specific campaign strategies. But again, when we're talking like overall general broad strategy, I'm a huge fan of, like you're saying, doing the 10%, maybe testing 20%, testing increments. Does this work? Does this not? Great. Increase, no, decrease, and kind of go from there.
Awesome. I was actually just about to ask, when you say testing in increments, like, what is your process? How long would you say is a good time to have enough data to then go off of?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, maybe a week or so. It depends on how close you're watching it. Like, sometimes you'll put it on and like the very next, couple days, you're like, okay, something went crazy. This is not working so well.
Yeah.
But I would say roughly a week or so is probably a good test.
Oh, that's excellent. Awesome. Great. Okay. Oh, I think he had another part here. Let's see. Regarding comparison of my CVR to my category, where inside Amazon do you find the data on conversion rates for your category and product types? Maybe category insight section or somewhere else.
Yeah. So you, probably what you're talking about, if you're talking inside the ad console, would be brand analytics. If you go inside the ad console, the left hand side, there's like that very far left bar. It's kind of, I don't remember if it's got a square, but it's got a little arrow chart thing. You can click on that.
Okay.
That will, so what that chart does, it's really great. So what it does is you can get access to your conversion rate versus your overall category. You can also get access to things on like how much are they actually searching for your brand. There's more things inside there than conversion rate, which are really interesting and awesome to look at. The one thing you do want to keep in mind though is that is going to be an aggregate performance of your entire brand. So if
Mm,
you have like one specific product that you're trying to look into, you're not going to get that granular with it. If you're looking at conversion rate metrics, the other thing you can look at is the search query performance. That will give you, that one used to also be aggregate of the brand. They have since given you the ability to niche down into a specific ASIN. Now, what we found is that, if you're having if you have variations, unfortunately, you can't like aggregate how the entire listing's doing. You have to only look at that one specific child ASIN. But so what in that case, I would say, like, where do you get the most traction? Like, which child ASIN has the most data if you're trying to validate a parent listing? But that will give you conversion rate data, you versus the market, for on an individual keyword level, which that amount of data is super granular. So it's amazing if you want to go granular. The other thing is it's super granular. And so if you have a very large catalog, my recommendation is look at it when you have specific ASINs that you're trying to troubleshoot, or when you have your top selling ASINs and you're trying to gauge your market share.
awesome. Good stuff. See here. UK Tech says, what will be the best PPC launch strategy for clothing niche, something women's dress, specifically women's dresses? See, I warned you
Yep.
this was
Yep. Yeah, so we actually deal with several large clothing brands. It can get tedious when you're talking variations. So I'll tell you the build out that we have had the most experience in, which is honestly are not the most experience, the most success doing, which in all reality is the most absolutely painful thing to build out, but it is where you get the best performance. It is if you can look at your keyword set and you can identify which products are related to which specific search term. So for instance, if I am selling women's jeans and I so happen to have a pair of black jeans, if I can go in and see women's small black jeans, and I can say, oh, I have a small black jean. So when the customer goes and starts in small black jean and everybody else, because they haven't done that deep analysis, they're showing what their blue ones or their light wash. And as a customer, honestly, shopping for clothing on Amazon is painful because I type in white women's button-down shirt and I'm stuck with plaid ones. I'm like, what the heck? So if
it's true.
as much as you can like get rid of that for the shopper,
Mhm.
you're going to get the best performance there. The other thing, it's like any other ones, it's just you're going to want to like super niche down. The problem with launches oftentimes, and I don't know if you're starting like with one specific like dress and you just have different sizes, or a lot of our clients will have like multi-variation listings where it's like they have the size and the color, and all of those are like, so they have 3 different colors. Some of them have like 10 and then all the sizes underneath those, and that gets ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, if you're launching, unfortunately, you don't have a lot of conversion rate data. So, like, you don't know which of your styles performs the best. You don't know which one of the styles performs the best. So, you're just going to have to find that out. I would say if you have different style variations, I would in the beginning start to like split those out into their own campaigns and kind of treat them a little bit separately so you can kind of gauge which of them perform. Um, but yeah, that's what I say. Niche down when you can. Don't go after women's dresses. It's like any other very competitive category. Like you don't want to go after the super, 200,000 search volume keywords. You want to look at the keywords. I like to start in like maybe the 1 to couple thousand range. Where can I hit my specific shopper base? How can I serve them up the product they want? And then as I get that feedback and I figure out which one converts the best, then I'm going to start pushing my best leg forward. So again, if you have any style specific keywords, you want to advertise those specific styles. On the general keywords, I would take a look at my product listing and I would say, okay, so which of these styles have I had the best conversion rate triggers? And I'm simply going to push those on the more like generic, maybe like women's short summer dress, keywords, like those type of things. I had one other point. Oh, the other thing is with clothing, because you're dealing with stock, like clothing is an absolute nightmare for stock. You probably will have things just inevitably run out of stock. So what we do oftentimes is, even if we have like our one hero listing, sometimes we'll put like the top 2, maybe even top 3. It depends on how good the client is at category or inventory management. Sorry. So sometimes you want to hedge your bets, and that way, because if the product goes out of stock, your ads will shut off if it's only going towards one of your products, versus if you have a couple of variations in there that you already know that these are my top conversion rate triggers, then you kind of hedge your bets against that happening.
Awesome. That's a really great tip. Thank you.
Mhm.
Excellent. Jeffrey again. When doing your PPC optimization, what reports do you like to run and what time frames do you like to work in?
Yeah, so we definitely like looking at bulk files. We do a lot of our optimizations off bulk files. As far as time frames, so okay, so the one, and I don't want to say like the only, other than the fact that it's manual, but the one main drawback to a bulk file is the fact that you have to look at a single static date range. That is a
Mm.
definite um downside to bulk files. Other than that, I don't really think there's much downside, other than the fact that you gotta know how to use them and go through them manually. So what we often do is I've started, and this has worked very well for us, looking at 2 separate date ranges. Because what we found is that if you look at very long date ranges, yes, you will snag more of that what is it, the attribution window. So you'll get a more longer time frame. But the problem is, if you go too wide, like say 30 days, what happens is that you will start missing out what's happening right now. So say in the last 7 days, all of a sudden performance went to crap. If you zoom out to 30 days, you might be like, oh, everything's great. And so I'm increasing bids. And then like, oh, wait, no, those bids weren't working. And you can see that issue happen. But if you zoom into a shorter date range, what you often miss is those things that have been slowly just bleeding out money in the background. Like you don't get to see as much historical like accumulation of clicks. So the pros and cons. So what I did a lot of times I'm like, all right, pros and cons. So how do I navigate the pros and cons? So what we'll do is we'll look at a 14-day date range. What I found is that gives us enough 14 days. You can look at the sponsored brands and sponsored display attribution windows, which are 14 days. So we've chosen to do it that way. So that gives us a much shorter time frame. But what we found is, again, the things that are driving just a lot of clicks and not getting performance. Sometimes we look at a shorter date range, we're like, oh, it only has like 5 clicks. Like, can we really make that determination? And then you zoom out to a longer date range, and you're like, oh, well, crap, wait, maybe it was 25 clicks. So what we do is we'll take the shorter day range, 14 days, do our general optimizations off of, achieving target ACOS or pushing for sales or whatever our objectives are. And then we'll also pull sometime later on in the week, we'll pull a longer date range, even 30 days, or maybe even going up to the 60 days. And all we're looking for in that longer date range is what are the things that are bleeding out. It depends on how restrictive we're getting for the brands. But these are oftentimes like our clicks with no sales. Or the other thing that we might look at, I'm a huge fan of looking at, is what is driving a high amount of clicks. So I'm getting a lot of ad spend on it, but I'm not driving a high amount of sales. So oftentimes, like my general benchmarks for that would be like, say, 25 clicks and 1 to 2 orders. Again, keep in mind your conversion rates. So as we were talking again about the one that had to take, maybe 2% conversion rates, so we're talking 50 clicks to make an order. So maybe at that point, 25 clicks and 1 order is fine. So you might want to zoom that a little bit out. But I'm simply looking for, where am I bleeding out that, given a more limited time frame, I've missed, and then let me clear that out of the account. And if I'm between the two of those, I can at least get most of my pros and cons covered.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, our next one here. Fuji says, excited to learn new strategy. Yay. I am
Hopefully you're
excited
learning
too.
something.
Yeah, I'm personally learning stuff, so I appreciate that. Jeffrey, do you ever use the stat of impressions to purchases, and how would you use that metric to make decisions?
Yeah, so that would be a good question. So that's not a metric that I don't use it. I like conversion rate better. If you're the way that you might look at it, so click through rate is another one. Like
Mhm.
click through rate tells you shopper interest, and conversion rate tells you shopper purchase behavior. So
Mhm.
those, if you're trying to look at something that gives you shopper intent, or shopper interest, I would go off of click through rate. And I've looked at certain forecast models, like the amount of impressions and then the click through rate can be kind of interesting if you want to look at forecast models for like forecasting like ad spend or things like that. There's some really interesting stuff you can like dig out with that. Honestly, for the majority of the stuff, I would say I wouldn't worry about it. The main thing I look for in impressions is like, am I getting any impressions? And if I am getting impressions, how that shopper funnel, are they seeing, how many people are seeing? Is anybody even clicking? Is anybody even purchasing? And then
Mhm.
through those things, I can kind of make a determination. You can get hung up in a lot of those things. I like to go in the weeds, and I like to look back and be like, yeah, that's not very useful. Let me like actually figure out what's the easiest way to find out what it is that I need to know to optimize.
Awesome. So really impressions is only showing you how many people have seen it
Yeah.
versus actually solidly looking at this and clicking into it,
Yes,
correct?
and if I'm remembering the literature correctly, I believe impressions are also page loads, so they're not
Ah.
technically eyes. So, like, if they go onto page 2 and it loads page 2, somebody will probably correct me on this. The last time I read the literature, I think it was if it loads the page, it's technically considered an impression, whether or not somebody saw it or not.
That's good to know. Oh my goodness, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's insane. Alex, good morning. I'm launching a product and really struggling with the best PPC strategy. Oh no.
Yeah.
Could you please advise me on a campaign structure to use? I can spend up to $300 a day. Also, when shall I stop my auto and broad ads or negate a keyword? I appreciate your help.
Yeah, awesome. That's a really good question on strategy. I'm trying to draft my YouTube videos. I'm in the process of like drafting. How do you figure out your strategy? Because this is a really good question and a very important question to answer, like answer for yourself, not just in general. And I love that you gave me context on your budget, which is amazing. That's one of the questions that
Yay!
you totally should answer in the beginning. Like, how much budget do I have to spend? Because I'm a big fan of, I could give you a general launch strategy and it could not be the right one for you because your budget may be more limited. So, my advice is the strategy that's going to work the best for you is the one where you can maximize that $300 a day, and that $300 a day is enough to run you 24 hours in your budget. Like, you want to be able to run whatever you have and not have it run out of budget, because that's where you're really going to be able to 100% validate your shopper because you're showing up for them all the time. Um, Second half of that question, I'll go back and answer like your actual question, like what should I be building and what should I be optimizing for? But in your second question is when you should stop your autos or broads, I would say never. And you always want to be run it. I don't care how big our accounts are. We're running autos. Sometimes we're running multiple autos for our larger accounts. Like, yes, I know that makes a lot of campaigns. Get ready for a lot of campaigns. As you grow, you're just going to add more. It's not going to be taking away any unless you're at some point where you're just, you need to pull back for profitability or whatever. Um, and then as far as negative keywords go, so this is my philosophy on negative keywords in general. And then I'm going to give you some couple pro tips when it comes to maybe running with a smaller budget. I wouldn't say your budget's super small, but smaller-ish. So my general philosophy is unless it is very the search term is irrelevant to my product, I would prefer just to optimize their bids. I would, instead of adding a whole bunch of negative keywords. I'm not a fan of, if you find a search term that's performing in broad, moving it to maybe another match type and then negating it in the original. That has to do more with the nuances of the Amazon platform than it does that being like a really bad philosophy. In theory, it's amazing. We're like, hey, we want to get super specific with our keywords. So we're going to put them in exact match. We're going to go full force with them. But what I found is that it doesn't always perform as well as it did in the original. Whenever you move things around, I've felt the pain of that happening to me. So what I would say is just leave the original running and then just retarget it somewhere else. So I'm not a fan of like adding excessive negative keywords. Now that's my overall philosophy. The thing I will say is oftentimes when you launch with an auto or you launch with a broad match, the algorithm will stick onto a major keyword that is spending excessively that does not perform well for your product right now because it is not a search page that you can compete on. For instance, if I was selling, like, say, maybe I had like a wooden, I don't know, kitchen spoon, and maybe I'm going like super niche. So I'm like bamboo wooden kitchen spoon or something, mixing spoon or something. And all of my auto locked on to kitchen utensils. And I'm like, well, like I'm making sales on it, but like the ACOS is like over 100% in the search term reports. I'm like, it's technically relevant. Like, so you're going to find those instances where you're like, it's relevant. She said it's relevant. I shouldn't negate it. In that case, if you have a specific search term that is absolutely sucking your budget, it's technically relevant, but it's like I have limited ad spend and all my ad spend is going to this one search term. I will negate that search term. And the reason why I'm like, I know this is a search page that I can't compete on right now. Yes, it's relevant, but I right now, because I have limited resources, I need to maximize those resources as much as possible. So I'm going to add that negative so I can clear that out. And then that ad budget will automatically get reallocated because the algorithm is going to have to find something else. So it's philosophy negative keywords. I would see that. All right. So now when it comes to strategy and building that up, I would say, like I've said kind of like a lot of times here, is go and find your specific search terms that are highly relevant to your shopper and look at it on, okay, I have $300 a day, right? I'm going to assume my conversion rate will be generous. I'm going to say 10%, right? I don't know your space. 10% is average. At this case, if you're going, again, if you have a more stylized product, if you have a high price product, you might be closer to 5%. So maybe hedge your bets and say 5. So you can take, okay, so if I have a 5%, you can take 1 divided by 0.05, and that gives you 20. So I say I need 20 clicks to, and on average, to make a sale, okay? All right, so I need 1 sale, right? I have a keyword that I need to probably spend $1.50 on. We're gonna say your cost per clicks are average to high, right? So $1.50. 20 clicks, I need to spend $30 to be able to make a sale, right? I have $300. So I technically can get 100 clicks on that one keyword, $30 to make a sale, right? I think I'm doing math. That might be wrong. Anyway, so what I would do is I would just kind of like it's going to be super loose math. Your conversion rate's not going to be solid. The cost per clicks are going to vary a little bit, but you can at least wrap your head around the basic idea and get a feel for, okay, so this is the search volume in my space. These are the keywords in my space. I also kind of look at Helium 10s. They have their like 8-day giveaways. You can take that number divided by 8 and say, okay, on average, again, these are super, super rough averages. Do not treat them as gospel. But if it's telling me I need to give away like, 5 products a day, on average, like maybe I could probably get 5 products, 5 sales might rank me there. Might. Again, super rough. But I would say, okay, so if I had to spend $30 for each conversion, and I'm saying, hey, I probably need 5 sales. Well, if you take 30, you multiply by 5, okay, that's already 150. That's a half my budget, right? So you can kind of, again, super rough averages, but you can kind of see how that math can add up super quickly. And so what oftentimes people do is they'll go out and pick like 100 keywords, and they're like, all right, I'm going to like spend on all these. And then their budget's going to get run out like that. 10 a.m., they're not showing up anywhere on the platform. And then eventually you're going to come to the realization, crap, I just can't use that many keywords. Well, if you start now and realize like, okay, I would rather go super aggressive after 3 to 5 keywords than I would 100 or 50 keywords and not have the budget for it. So I would say find your market, decide what you can spend, go aggressively after that. If you're going to be aggressive, exact match is sponsored products. I would start there. And then just see Ideally, you generate sales, you have more income to be able to reinvest into your ads, and then that's how you scale the ads.
Awesome. That's so excellent. It sounds like just smart budgeting and knowing your keywords is the thing to do.
Yeah.
Excellent. Next question we have here from Shaquille. Does spends on PPC is normal? Is spending okay? I think he's asking is the spending on PPC normal if my campaign sounds a lot for the spends a lot for the first time, makes a lot for the first
Yeah. So I think from my guess, it's that they're just starting to run campaigns and like realizing
time?
like,
Okay.
oh crap, this is spending more than I thought it was going to spend. Yes. So if you heard my answer to the last question, that's probably going to answer this question. It really is a matter of how high your bids are, how many keywords you are targeting on, and how
Mhm.
many clicks those keywords are getting. So if I have, a dollar bid and I'm getting 5 clicks, so it's $5, and then I have 50 keywords. Well, even if $5 a keyword to run isn't terrible, okay, times 50, you can see how that can get really expensive. So if you're not able to sustain higher ad spend, again, I would rather niche down, get super specific to my shopper avatar, my exact space, dig in, start there, prioritize sponsored products. If you have limited budgets, prioritize sponsored products, and then just run with that.
Awesome. I feel like I can't help but feel like this is why my Amazon guy kept me with creative. Anything with budgeting, I suck with. I'm the worst spender, so that's why they probably kept me in the creative world. Next question is Ali, can we run PPC on wholesale model?
You absolutely can. As long as you are selling on Amazon, you can run PPC. The one thing you are going to have to keep in mind is that on wholesale, your margins are much smaller.
Hmm,
So that means you're going to have to be more savvy with what you're doing. It's doable.
awesome. Great. Let's see. Lungu, I hope I pronounced that right. I'm sorry. Hello. Hi. My price is $5 to $8 above the average selling price in the niche. I prefer to pay in PPC more, but keep the price instead of selling at the same price as Chinese sellers. Is that a good approach?
Yeah, I would say if you are making sales and you're happy with your sales, that is a good approach.
If it works for you,
If
it
it
works
works,
for
it
us.
works.
Excellent. Easy one. Facebook user. Ooh, anonymous Facebook user. I spent 1947 and had sales of 1985. We talking years now? Listing is fully optimized A plus content. That's what I like to hear. Have good reviews. Awesome. Not sure what to do. Like what should be long term goal of PPC expert. Um, Oh, except organic ranking and how to lower ACOS. One more thing, I don't like the negative, or I don't like to negate a keyword. Even conversion rate is too low because it's relevant. Your opinion on this as well.
Yep.
Thank you in advance.
Awesome.
Yay!
Yes. So I agree with your sentiment on the negative keywords. If you heard my recap on the exceptions, meaning if you have like a search term that's absolutely bleeding out, it's something you're never going to rank on, you just can't compete, and you really need to reallocate that budget somewhere else, then you can. I will in those cases. It's like a special use case
Mhm.
to add that as a negative keyword. Not sure what to do long term. So your goal, honestly, in any selling on Amazon is to make money, to make sales. So as somebody who owns an ad agency, as much as it would pay me because I would be out of business, if sellers could get onto Amazon and not run PPC and still make sales, they would do it. Like no one
Mm.
runs PPC perpetually because they want to. What they need is because the market is so competitive. You're basically forced to run PPC for visibility. And a lot of times, what sellers find is that even if they pull back on ads, they see a continuous slipping of their total sales volume. And so to bolster that, they continuously run PPC. So what I would say is brace yourself for the fact that you probably have to run it perpetually, but you can pull back. So if you have really good conversion rate, if your listing is well optimized, and you are ranking on some keywords, what I would do is I would test pulling back. There's many sellers who we've brought on in the agency, and they're like, "Hey, I feel like I'm really well ranked. I would like to, see, like, do we really need to run ads?" And we're like, "Hey, we don't know. We'll test it." And so what we do now, I would not go through and I wouldn't pause everything and be like, "Oh, look, it's an all or nothing." It's not an all or nothing. What you want to do is, like, say you are highly ranked for one keyword and you're getting the top ad spot. Can you get middle of the page and still maintain that ranking? Can you get bottom of the page? Now that will drive you mad if you're going to like every single page. You're like, okay, wait, if I lower my bid 5 cents, like, do I get here? If on your top keywords, you might want to do that because they're so important to you. So I always do things in level of importance, like 80/20 it. These are my top keywords that drive most of my sales, that drive the highest rank. I fought tooth and nail to get here, so I'm going to be super, super careful with these ones. I don't want to lower my bid 5 cents and be on page 3, so I'm going to like drop it very incrementally, wait 5 minutes, go check where am I on the page, like those kind of very incremental tests. But for everything else, you might just start trying to target a lower ACOS. That's a really great way to incrementally bring things down. So if you want to just naturally dial down your ads, what you can do is like, okay, I have my ACOS right now. I'm running at 30%. I'm happy with 30%, but what if we did 27, 25 even? What does my PPC look like then? Am I still maintaining sales? Am I still getting more profits when I do that? Yes. And then it's a yes or no questions. You do the optimization, you watch your sales trends, you watch your ranking, and then you make the determination if it's working. Yes. If it's not, okay, then you just go back to doing what you're doing.
Awesome. Excellent. Sounds like when I tried to give up coffee. Did not go well when I stopped cold turkey. Awesome. Next one here. Ooh, pretty name. I'm not sure how to pronounce this, so I'll just say Nyak. Hi. Hello. Can you suggest some strategies for restock after 1 month of out of stock? Ooh, 1 month.
Yes,
Thank you.
that is a hard scenario. What I want to say is you want to go in treating it like a relaunch. So
Mm,
basically treat it like a launch strategy. Expect that you're going to have to come back from zero. The benefit of you launching now versus when you originally launched your product is you have data. So what I would be doing, there's two ways. You can either go through and be like, I'm going to get super incremental. I'm going to like basically treat it like a launch strategy because everything's effectively paused. I'm going to take the opportunity to go in and restructure my campaigns. If there's anything like that didn't really work very well, I'm going to clean it up. Or you can simply say, hey, I know what I had on. I'm going to unpause it. I'm going to increase bids on everything that was driving the bulk of my sales. You can do it that way. That's a lazy hack. If you have time like we do, we don't do that. But if you want to, you can re-enable everything. And then I would go into be like, okay, what was driving the most sales in these campaigns? And I'm going to increase these. Either way, you want to be going off of what you know has previously had good shopper signals. And then again, treat it like a relaunch, track your keywords, make sure you're being aggressive on your top ranking targets, and then track your progress. And do not expect, even if you optimize down to like stellar ACOS before, expect everything to be pretty much launch numbers. And if you're braced for that, if you're prepared for that, and you can get through that, you'll be much better off than the person who's really worried because they used to be at 25% ACOS and now they can't, and they're not okay with like increasing things. You have to be okay
mm,
with like, again, just increasing things.
yeah, do what you got to do to get back up there.
Mm.
See, next one is Ali. What are some common mistakes to avoid when setting up and managing Amazon PPC campaigns?
That is a very good and very broad question. um, so the thing that uh, because I went like everybody else, right? So you get in, you're like, all right, I got to optimize for this ACOS, and you're like, well, why did that make sales drop? And then you go back in, you're like, oh, wait, this is what I did. Or you'll scale things in like say December, and then come January, something goes to crap, and you're like, wait, that's because I put really high bids on broad match, which triggered everything, which does not work in January. So what I have found, I think, is the most um maybe the most thing that you need to hedge against is treating everything in the account as if it has the same level of importance, because it doesn't.
Mm.
It's so easy to go in and say, okay, I am targeting a 25% ACOS. Everything above 25% ACOS is obviously not good, so I'm cutting it. It makes our life much simpler to do like blanket statements like that. But what you will find in actual practice as you walk out those optimizations is that is never the case. You're going to have certain keywords that you are going to have to run slightly above targets, because those are what are propping up your organic ranking. You're going to have those other keywords that are like running really phenomenal, like, oh my gosh, I'm getting 15% ACOS here. But then you start increasing the bids, and the ACOS performance just isn't what you had anticipated. So I'm a huge fan. This is the way I look at it, is what can I work to potentially drive ranking on? So for me, those are mostly sponsored product exact match, sometimes phrase match, because you can't always get the best performance out of exact match. Sometimes it works better in phrase. So I'm fine with like, those are my subsets that I say, if I can find something that works here, I'm going to get more aggressive with it. And that's, again, those are kind of things that I'm pushing to prop up my organic ranking. Everything else is, and that gets into what match types should you run and all of that. But I would say in a way, the rest of it is sort of like keyword research, but it's not. You want to keep it all running. I wouldn't only look at it that this is only the keyword research. You're still generating good sales. You're still generating good visibility, but I like to look at long-term potential for like your broader targeting and recognize that it has a high chance long-term, if I increase things significantly, to get out of control. And those are the most painful accounts to correct, if I'm being honest, are the things that are heavily reliant on broad match categories, autos to drive everything. Because if the algorithm all of a sudden doesn't put you in those placements it used to, or you go out of stock and it's really difficult to get those things to push back again, it's really difficult to correct for those. So just kind of looking at everything in balance. I would say that if you can correct for that mistake, you'll save yourself a world of pain.
Yeah. I was sitting here thinking, it's like the nightmares you have probably seen and corrected are
Oh,
legendary.
and do not, for the love of God, do not launch campaigns with a million different ad groups.
Ooh.
Don't. Because what you will find is you will go in there and you will say, oh my gosh, look at this one ad group. It is driving all of my sales for me. I would love to put more budget towards this. But all of these other ad groups have very high ACOS, and so I cannot allocate more budget. So the cleaner you can keep your campaign structure, the better you will be able to allocate spend.
Awesome. Thank you. Assad, how to reduce product pages clicks without hurting the rest of search clicks?
Unfortunately, you can't put negatives on product pages. There's really no way to increase the rest of search. So as much as you will look at those placement percentages and be like, if I can only do this, we can't. So what you have to do is just look at the aggregate, like what is the performance on the keyword level, and adjust your bid for that. That's really all you can do.
Solid. Jaleel, with BR and PH match kind of sorry, kind of being phased out because BMM. Do you know what abbreviation that is? I'm not familiar. So many abbreviations. Is
I don't
basically
know if it's
broken in
being
line.
broad match and phrase match being phased out. Oh, broad modified. Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
conspiracy theory time. All right, so a little while ago, I think they're talking about broad match modifiers.
Okay.
You'll have to tell us, because even I'm
Tell us
confused
if we're
with these
wrong.
acronyms,
Yeah.
and I live and breathe this stuff. Okay, so, yes, okay, so this is incorrect. I don't wanna be rude, that's probably a little harsh. But anyways, they are not being phased out. There's nothing wrong. Broad match and phrase match are still well and good. They're live and kicking. What happened a little while ago? It's conspiracy theory time.
Love conspiracy
Inside
theory.
of sponsored brands, broad match does not function the same way that it does in a sponsored product ad. So basically what happens is if I say I want to say running shoes, broad match instead of a sponsored brand ad can run on the search term sneakers. You'd be like, oh, then you can see why that would spiral out of control really fast and get you really terrible performance. So what we do is most times in our agency, we will not run broad match in sponsored brand ads. Or what you can do is use something called modified broad match. If you know the Google world, you're familiar with this. You can basically, all it is you're putting a plus symbol in front of all the words that you want to tell the algorithm you must show these in the search that you're triggering. A little while ago, all of a sudden, all of these, relevant, unconnected search terms started showing up in sponsored product ads. And everybody freaked out and they're like, holy crap, Amazon has changed their algorithm. Nobody could get a straight answer. There are so many people, I myself included, who know people at Amazon and we're like asking what the heck is going on. People are opening support tickets because we're like, hey, if you are changing how the algorithm functions, and I was like getting ready to write an open letter to Amazon because I'm like, it's ridiculous. If you're changing something that is already part of my current ad structure and you're going to make it perform completely differently, all of a sudden I have to rethink our strategy for all of our clients and all of our accounts. And we run a whole lot of sponsored product broad match. So all of us were freaking out. And quietly, it just disappeared from the search terms reports, and nobody ever got a clear answer from Amazon if it was or was not the case. So nobody knows. Is it coming sometime to an ad account near you? I don't know. At this point, it seems to have corrected itself. We have not heard from Amazon that this is in fact an update, which leads me to believe that they had a snafu that they don't want to talk about. That's my personal theory on it. I honestly don't know. So yeah, that's the backstory on what I'm assuming this is getting at. There's nothing wrong with broad match and phrase match. Best time, use them all the time. Use all the things.
Awesome. Sounds like someone at Amazon accidentally clicked post and then just pulled it back.
I don't know. Everyone was freaking out and nobody knew what was going on and it was terrible.
I can't imagine being on the receiving side of like getting all those tickets in and just being like, oh, undo button.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on splitting auto campaigns into two with, you'll have to help me with the abbreviations, with PM/LM.
So they're asking if you split your auto campaign into close match and loose match and substitutes and complements in campaigns. The rationale on this is typically speaking, close match and loose match will target keywords, not always, but basically that's pretty much the case. And substitutes and complements typically target product pages. So is there validity in splitting those out? The question was, do I find it easier when extracting, but does it help in terms of more sales? So the reason why you would do this is for budget allocations and be able to play with the placement percentages. So it's really about control if you want to get super granular with these. And yeah, so I would just say, like, how much control do you want to have over it? How much is the swap out worth the annoyance of having more campaigns to manage?
Awesome.
And we do often split these out. So
yeah. Awesome. UK Tech, thanks a lot. That was great information. I agree. I second that. Okay. Hi, I am launching my first product. Congratulations. Just started with auto campaigns only and get few sales. I was going to add a broad plus exact campaign, but the bids were expensive. What do you suggest?
I would start with low bids. I would start with low bids and watch it. And if you don't get any impressions, go and increase them.
Solid advice. Do what's best for you. Jaleel, a brand I'm working with doesn't have an Amazon presence, but has their own website and sells well. Sorry. What's the best way to find out which product is the main seller? Wants to start with 15 products.
That's a good question. So I'm not really well versed in like we don't migrate brands on Amazon or
Mm,
like help them get on the platform. But what I will say is most of them they should be able to tell you which ones their best sellers. Oftentimes, whatever sells well off Amazon will sell well on Amazon. But how
mhm,
you can actually help them would be to do a little bit of preliminary keyword research and figure out the search volume in the space because actually the most difficult products to target or to rank and launch are the ones where the search volume is super low, which means that there's not a lot of people looking for Amazon. Amazon is not a platform where you can create shopper interest. It's one where you simply
mm,
harness shopper interest. So if you can help them identify where there's the most shopper interest and where they could potentially fit into the market, which when you're looking at search volume, another tip again, what you don't want to see is all of the search term or search volume concentrated on like one, maybe two keywords, because that tells you that everybody in that space is going to go after the 1, 2 keywords. Even in more competitive spaces, if you can find like at least a handful or so of keywords that are in maybe 1,000, couple thousand search range minimum, that would be like if I'm vetting products to go on Amazon, that would be kind of what at least I'm looking for. When I'm trying to validate market for a product.
awesome. Great. See, was there a part two to this one that I saw? Should I run, excuse me, should I run an auto and an exact match with the top, the top, two keywords with all products being targeted, and then assess after 7 to 10 days to build out individual portfolios and know which one to push PPC?
Yeah, so I would say yes, you can top keywords for all the products if all of those products are variations. If they're separate listings, I would build their own campaigns targeting those keywords. If they're all variations, that's often how we validate top performers, will be to
Mm,
put them all in the same campaign.
nice. Okay, let's see. Jeffrey. Elizabeth, I loved your video on a new way to calculate ACOS. I literally just watched that the other day. Very insightful. More, please.
Awesome. I'll have to dig into that one.
Brian, hi. Joining late. What would you recommend for how to start with PPC staying as close as possible to using revenue from sales to scale PPC spend? As in, who?
Really, how
uh,
would you start small, or is that misguided? No, I
uh,
don't think it's misguided to start small. Um, I would say just set your expectations, that if you're starting small, your sales volume is not going to be as large. So it's gonna in some level, it depends on how fast your product takes off. If your product has great conversion rates, it takes off, positive shopper signals, the market loves it, you pull up in the ranking, that's going to be a much more viable strategy for you than if you're like, great, maybe I don't have as much product market fit as I thought, or maybe this market's more difficult to advertise in. Maybe I need to do more tweaks to my listing before it really takes off. I have to spend a lot more than I was anticipating to be able to make up that sales volume that it takes to get that organic visibility. That's going to be a much longer process for you. And if you're constantly having to like reevaluate what you're doing in the sales volume, and like looking at that as far as like what you can spend, it kind of becomes like a chicken and the egg thing. Like I need to drive sales so I can put it in spend, but I got to spend to drive sales. So just know that you could potentially be setting yourself up for that. And then also when you're talking cash flow and reinvesting in ads, you do want to think about reorders. So just keep that in mind. What you don't want to happen is to like end up with no cash, so you can't do a reorder, and then you got out of stock.
mm. It's probably the worst
Yeah.
thing to happen right there.
Yeah. So I would say it's not misguided. Just go in with eyes wide open.
Mm, good advice. Akhtar, how to reach authentic wholesale distributors for Amazon FBA wholesale?
I don't know.
No, me too.
That's what I had to say. I know a lot about PPC. I don't know a lot about wholesale.
Yeah.
I know about advertising wholesale, but not finding suppliers.
Different live Q&A for that question. Okay, on your kitchen utensils metaphor, yes, kitchen utensils. After negating from auto or negative, yeah, from auto, would you move it to its own exact campaign to really see if you can compete on the keyword profitability.
That is an insanely good strategy, and I would say if I had the budget for it, I probably would test it. I probably would test it. And just clarity, for those of you who are wondering like what that strategy is, I'm like, oh, you said it was a good strategy. What is it? So I had talked about if you have like a very high volume keyword that you can't compete on that is sucking a whole bunch of ad budget, my like exception to the rule on adding negative keywords might be adding that search term as a negative to be able to reallocate the ad spend. And the question is, okay, so you didn't want it to show up in an auto win or abroad or someplace where it's sucking all the ad budget that you want to go to other searches, but would you potentially take that high volume keyword and put it in an exact match campaign, so we're only targeting that one specific search and it's not like we're broadening everywhere, with maybe a lower bid and maybe a lower budget, just to test and see, can I compete on some level on that search term? And so if you have the ad budget to test things like that, I think that's a really good strategy to try to see, can I put a lower bid here and get some more profitable sales.
Awesome. Sounds good. Let's see here. My alarm just went off. I'm like, oh, it's already one. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Okay. So spend and sales are the same, check market depth. I observed regarding this in these like inches, people more concerned product utility. People are sensitive in purchasing like leather books.
Yeah. So if I think that's what they're saying. Check this. Yeah, market depth, meaning how picky are people, how willing are they to start? Yeah, things like leather books, like actual genuine leather books, people who like those are like,
Mhm.
what, I mean, I don't know anything about it, but like, what's the grain like? What's the, what kind of leather? How thick is it? What type of leather? Yeah, you will find people much more willing to search for whatever they specifically want.
Mhm. For sure. Okay. Our competitor is ranking on weak, so many abbreviations, keywords, but still making 100K, awesome, with one variation while we spend almost thousands of money for ranking, but still not getting a good share. What should we do?
Um, Yeah, so have you checked what keywords that they are generating? Like you're saying they're ranking a lot on weaker search volume keywords. Oftentimes if you have a product that I've had this with some clients before, they'd be like, "Oh, this is my top competing product." And you go and do the reverse ASIN search, we're like, well, all of those low search volume keywords that they're ranking on are actually branded keywords. So what you want to watch for is somebody doing well on their own branded keywords, and that will signify to you, like if there's a lot of search volume on their brand, that they've built a brand off Amazon that people are then coming to Amazon to search, and that's not going to be a competitor that you could adequately compare your price, like your sales volume to, because they're generating sales from basically another source, not just Amazon. So it's not just ranking. I'm not saying that's the case, but I would say I would heavily look into that, because oftentimes what I found in this kind of scenario is that's kind of a driving factor. When you're saying ranking but still not getting good share, are you ranking or are you not ranking? That would be the question. If you've ranked a lot and you're still not getting the market share you want, again, I would check where the competitor is actually driving sales from. Is it branded? Or if you haven't ranked on it at all, then I would say then you probably should pull back and find out where you can't rank. So if you've done one strategy and it just isn't getting you the results that you want, I would say see if you can pivot on strategy. Search query report, or looking into your search term report. Basically, where are you converting well? Where are you converting like above average for your market, and what is bringing in decent amount of sales, and see if you can pivot to allocate ad spend there, and then see if that gives you the traction you need in the sales.
Awesome. Excellent. Let's see if we have time for one more. Hi. In a sponsored brand video campaign, a high percentage of new to brand NTP orders, 97%, and high advertising cost of sales, 86%. How to identify the issue in this campaign?
Um, so I'm assuming the issue would be ACOS because it's okay. So this is me getting philosophical, but like the same person can look at that campaign and like, oh, awesome, I'm getting 97% in new to brand orders. I'm cool with that ACOS being 86%. I don't have the problem. So when you say how to identify the issue with this campaign, I'd be like, what is the objective of the campaign? What is the objective of the brand? And is this campaign hitting our objective? Yes or no? For a brand that is heavily in conquest mode, I'll be honest, most of them are probably like 80%, 86% ACOS is probably not okay. But there are outliers in there where that wouldn't be the problem. So one, it's not really identifying like what's wrong with the campaign. It's how is this campaign misaligned with your strategy? I'm assuming that the misalignment is going to be the ACOS numbers. So if we're digging into ACOS, you can actually go look at that other video that I had that somebody mentioned, a new way to look at ACOS, which will heavily give you insights into how your conversion rate and your cost per clicks influence ACOS. Honestly, if we're talking ads, the only thing you can do in the ads to lower ACOS is lower the bid. So as much as that seems simple and it seems like a cop out and like I should give you a wizard strategy, I don't have one. Lower the bid. So then the question becomes, like I was saying in before, in what's the thing that you should hedge against when it comes to advertising? It's orders of priority. So how important is it for you to maintain a high presence on this sponsor brand's video ad campaign? How much do you need to maintain that presence in your space to not have your competitors sweep in? And is that importance worth the 86% ACOS to you? Yes or no? We had the same scenario. We had a competitor, or one of our clients came in and they're like, hey, we want to get this, our competitors are dominating this search page. We have to get our video ad here. And we ran the test and we ran the video ad and we came back and we were like, it's $8 a click to get there. Do you want to do this? We will put the $8 a click. I don't think this is within your ACOS goals to be able to do that. And they're like, yeah, no, that's not a battle I'm willing to fight. So a lot of it is just determining, like, is this a battle I'm willing to fight? If not, I need to back down. Backing down means lowering the bid.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Oh, we got the all good sign here. Great. So, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today and answer our questions. Definitely, guys, tune in next week, or always, as always, come to our Friday podcast sessions as well. We will try to get to all of your questions. So, thank you for flying my Amazon guy, our pilot. We appreciate you, Elizabeth Greene. Can you give the audience some ways that they can follow you, reach out to you, stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. So the best place to follow me is definitely going to be on LinkedIn. I put out the most content there, although I am trying to build up our YouTube channel. But you can follow me on LinkedIn. And then if you want to work with us, definitely our website, which is junglr.com, JUNGLR.
Awesome, great. And we'll have some stuff linked down below. So definitely check it out. Well, thank you guys. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.